step into the shadows with me. Tonight, we peel back the innocent mask of a rhyme you thought you knew. Georgie Porgie, pudding and pie, kissed the girls and made them cry. A sing-song verse from childhood? Or a scandalous riddle that mocked kings, betrayed lovers, and chronicled the sins of England's most notorious George? But before we unravel this tale of power, passion, and betrayal, don't forget to subscribe to The Silent Lodge, your key to the hidden corners of history where innocence hides corruption. Nursery rhymes, to the casual ear, are harmless little jingles. They echo through playgrounds, whispered by children without a thought of their meaning. But behind many of these rhymes lurks something sinister. Wars, plagues, executions, and scandals. And Georgie Porgie? Well, this one may be the darkest of them all. It's not just a rhyme about playground crushes, it may be satire. A coded poem that mocked men of power, hinting at affairs, betrayals, and appetites that shook kingdoms. But who was Georgie Porgie? That's the question that has puzzled historians for centuries. Two names rise from the fog of time, both dripping with scandal. George Villiers, the Duke of Buckingham, and George IV, the gluttonous Prince Regent. Could a children's rhyme really be about them? Tonight, we'll follow the trail through shadowed courts, whispered letters, and blood-stained history. The verse most of us remember goes like this. Georgie Porgie, pudding and pie, kissed the girls and made them cry. When the boys came out to play, Georgie Porgie ran away. On its face, it's simple. Georgie kisses girls, makes them cry, then flees when confronted by boys. Childish teasing, perhaps a lesson in cowardice. But folklore is rarely so simple. Pudding and pie was 17th century slang, with meanings far less innocent than dessert. Kissing the girls could be a euphemism for scandalous affairs. And running away? A jab at cowardice in both bed and battle. Already, we see how this harmless rhyme may be a satirical knife aimed at someone powerful. But who? Let's turn to the first suspect. George Villiers, better known as the Duke of Buckingham, was the dazzling favorite of King James I of England. To the world, he was handsome, ambitious, and ruthless. To King James, he was something much more. At just 21 years old, George Villiers caught the king's attention. Contemporary accounts describe him as the handsomest man in all England. His beauty, his charm, his ambition, they were irresistible to the aging monarch. King James showered him with titles, wealth, and power, elevating him from obscurity to duke in record time. And the relationship between them? Well, the letters leave little doubt. James wrote to Villiers, God bless you, my sweet child and wife, and grant that you may ever be a comfort to your dear father and husband. Yes, you heard that correctly. The King of England called Villiers both wife and husband. Their bond was deeply emotional, and likely deeply physical. But Villiers' desires didn't stop at the king. He pursued women too, often married noblewomen. His affairs were whispered across court. His mother even schemed to entrap Lady Catherine Manners, the richest heiress in England, into a scandalous overnight stay that forced her father to allow marriage. The Duke's rise bred resentment. Courtiers despised him. The public mocked him. His political blunders, like the disastrous naval campaign against Spain, earned him enemies in Parliament. And yet, with royal protection, he seemed untouchable. Until one fateful day in 1628, when he was stabbed to death in a Portsmouth inn by a disgruntled officer named John Felton. The public reaction? They celebrated. Satirical poems poured out, mocking Villiers as corrupt, effeminate, and cowardly. Could Georgie Porgie have been among them? Think about it. Pudding and pie. Indulgence, both in food and in flesh. Kissed the girls and made them cry. His many affairs, breaking hearts and reputations. When the boys came out to play, Georgie Porgie ran away, his perceived cowardice mocked by enemies. The rhyme's mocking tone fits perfectly with the public's hatred of Villiers. But there's one problem. The earliest printed version of the rhyme doesn't appear until over 200 years after his death. Could it have survived orally that long? Possibly. But this time, Gap leaves room for another candidate. Fast forward to the late 18th century. Enter George IV, the Prince Regent, later King of England. Unlike his father, George III, famous for a quiet, pious life, George IV was scandal incarnate. Lavish feasts, endless mistresses, gambling, drinking, and debts that dwarfed even royal coffers. By 21, Parliament had already bailed him out with the modern equivalent of millions, and still it wasn't enough. But his biggest scandal? Love. George fell hopelessly in love with Maria Fitzherbert, a Catholic commoner, twice widowed. Their marriage was illegal under British law, but they married in secret anyway. Later, pressured by debt and duty, he abandoned her to marry Princess Caroline of Brunswick. The marriage was a disaster. They despised each other, lived apart, and after producing one heir, refused to reconcile. George took mistress after mistress, ballooned in size from constant indulgence, and became a subject of ridicule in political satire. Now, picture George IV in the rhyme. Pudding and pie. His gluttony, his banquets, his infamous obesity. Kissed the girls and made them cry. His many affairs, leaving scandal and heartbreak in his wake. When the boys came out to play, his cowardice in public opinion, mocked as weak, indulgent, and unfit to rule. Unlike Villiers, George IV lived in a time when nursery rhymes were already circulating in print. By the early 1800s, political satire often slipped into rhyme and verse. It's entirely plausible that Georgie Porgie was a jab at the prince himself. So, which George was it? The Duke of Buckingham fits the rhyme's satire perfectly, but the timing is suspicious. Oral tradition could have preserved it, but we lack evidence. George IV, on the other hand, was actively mocked in verse during his lifetime. His obesity, his affairs, his disastrous marriage, all fertile ground for satire. And since the rhyme appears in print during the 19th century, it matches his era. Could the truth be both? Perhaps the rhyme began as whispered satire of Villiers, carried through centuries, and reshaped in George IV's day. A hybrid scandal immortalized in children's song. What do you think? Was Georgie Porgie the Duke of Buckingham, the gluttonous Prince Regent, or both? Share your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear your take. You might wonder, why cloak satire in a child's rhyme? The answer lies in censorship. Directly mocking kings and dukes could be dangerous, but disguise it as a jingle for children? That was safer. Satire slipped past the authorities, preserved in playgrounds and oral tradition, until one day it was just harmless nonsense. But for those who knew, the rhyme carried venom. It was ridicule in disguise. Today, most of us never question the rhyme. It's a silly verse for children. But beneath its sing-song rhythm lies scandal. A king who may have called another man his wife. A duke who seduced noblewomen and courted ruin. A prince whose appetite and affairs scandalized a nation. And through it all, Georgie Porgie became a cultural weapon. A reminder that history's great men were often mocked, not revered. That even kings could not escape satire. So the next time you hear children chant Georgie Porgie, pudding and pie, remember, you're not just hearing a rhyme. You're hearing history's whispers, scandal, betrayal, satire sung across centuries. Was Georgie Porgie the Duke of Buckingham, the gluttonous George IV, or a cruel fusion of both? The truth may be forever lost, But the rhyme remains, a haunting reminder that even childhood songs carry shadows. If you enjoyed unraveling the scandal behind Georgie Porgie, don't forget to subscribe to the Silent Lodge. Like this video, share it with others who love untold history, and drop your theories in the comments below. Until next time, remember, innocence is rarely what it seems, and the shadows are always watching.